Most people's lives peaked in high school. And if I were to give you advice on the type of person you should stay away from, they are people that constantly dwell on the past. There is no reason for you to dwell on the past and how amazing it used to be if you are a young, healthy person. And I noticed this is very common amongst youth or adults in the West. When I used to be in London, I think every time I would get around people, all they would talk about is how lockdown was amazing, how they enjoyed lockdown, how freeing it was, or how amazing school used to be. And that always used to rub me wrong. And only now I understand why that's such a flawed way of thinking. Because if you really think about it, if somebody's constantly dwelling on the past, that is indicative that they're not growing in their life. Because if you're thinking about how great life used to be, some people are thinking about how great life is going to get. It's all a perspective shift. And I noticed this when you hang around these kind of people and they're so past living, it rubs off on you and it makes you become more miserable in the present moment. And this is what I'm trying to get you out of. I had to really tap out of that. Now when I hang around with these people, it's such a foreign language to me that I laugh. And I'm like, yo, why are you always talking about the past? What are you currently doing with your life? Then it's the same things. I work a job I don't like. I have a routine that I can't get out of. I talk to the same people, hang around the same places, and you wonder why your life's miserable. This world wasn't engineered in a way where a 20-year-old is going to sit at home or around his friends talking about how amazing school used to be. If somebody asked me what was your high school experience, I would say, yeah, I enjoyed it. But it's not the highlight of my life. Matter of fact, the highlight of my life is yet to come, if I'm alive. But again, it's indicative that you're not growing. Because when you really reverse engineer this, and I want all of you guys listening to this to understand this, right? When you constantly dwell on the past, and bearing in mind, let me make a few disclaimers here. If you're not old, and if you don't have health complications that have randomly risen up, I do understand in those situations that you can definitely, miss the old days because again, you're old or you've got health problems. But if you're young and healthy, you can't look me in the eyes and talk about how amazing life used to be and how you miss it. Because that means that you're scared to actually make moves and grow because you don't know what the future holds. So I want you guys to tap in with me right now. I want you to throw away that mindset. And if you do hang around with people that are in that life situation, distance them. Because those people are going to have a bad effect on your mindset. And it's something that I notice a lot in the West. Maybe here in the UAE, I don't notice it quite as much because people are very positive. As a matter of fact, let me actually paint you the stark differences. When you talk to people that are very locked in, are continually growing, I can almost promise you the past is never something that comes up. Or it's something that is relevant to the conversation. They always talk about what they're presently doing. I'm currently doing this. It doesn't have to be to do with business. It doesn't have to be anything money related. It just means, I'm trying to get myself in shape right now. I'm trying to get some abs. I'm trying to make this money if it's money related. Or I'm trying to get married. I can't wait to get married. It's all forward thinking. It's all future thinking. And then what does that show you? Because sometimes as humans, we don't quite process what information we're taking in, but it definitely sits in your subconscious. But when somebody's always talking about the future, even if you're somebody that's not currently growing, what does it force you to do? Grow, because you have no choice. So now you're then sat there taking in and you're like, you know what, that person's actually doing things in their present moment and they're actually looking forward to the future. Then you start looking within yourself and asking yourself, why am I not looking forward to the future? Why is it that I'm sat here, thinking that my life might be over? It's all a perspective shift. And that's why I always tell young people, life is just a collection of perspectives. You hang around with negative people, you're going to have negative perspectives or perspectives on life. You hang around with positive people, your perceptions and perspectives are naturally going to change. So one thing I want you to understand is as you grow and you're trying to evolve yourself, the one thing that gets you out of that mindset almost instantaneously is to have a curious mindset. Whenever you go outside, whenever you are trying to do something that you are interested in, don't look towards what other people are going to say about you regarding that thing. Rather, ask yourself, is this something I'm interested in? Go for it. The one thing that really solidified it for me was traveling. I'm not advising that traveling, or I'm not going to tell you that traveling is going to solve most of your problems. But when you travel, and I travel alone, a lot of people don't like traveling alone. When you travel alone, you end up realizing that, the world is much bigger than we perceive. The amount of young people that are probably watching this video that have mentally tapped out because of their inconclusive data through their small sample size, it's crazy. A kid can talk to me today and say, yo, my life sucks, man, and my life's over. I'm never going to find anything good. but you've lived in Northwest London your whole life and you've never stepped out within a 5-mile radius. You don't even know what Mayfair looks like. And you've made this inconclusive, conclusion based on the small sample size you've had. And that's the way I see people's mindsets. A lot of people's mindsets are geared towards negativity because they haven't expanded their horizons. So first thing you actually need to do is have an open mind. I don't care who you are. I don't care how bad life's done you. The moment you have an open mind and you're open to doing new things, because the reason why you're not open to doing new things is your brain is wired for comfort, for safety. Whenever you try something uncomfortable for the first time, your nervous system jacks up. I speak about this a lot of times. When your nervous system jacks up, it doesn't mean that you have to run away from that situation and never go back. It means you have to go back continually, but not with the mindset that I have to perform. Rather, let me endure the situation. Increase your distress tolerance. So when I started traveling and I started going to certain places, another thing that I tell people is try to go to places that give you the biggest culture shock or give you the biggest cultural enrichment, not touristic attractions, right? If you go to, it's like, for example, I give this example to people that live in London or the UK, right? If you go to London and all I took you to was Buckingham Palace, London Eye, I don't even know what other touristic places there are in London, and I just told you go home, go back to your home country. Would you have gotten a real experience of what London's like? No. There's certain areas you can go to Tottenham, ghetto, go to South London, go to Brixton, go to all of these other areas like Wembley. Go see what the locals do and get a real experience of what goes around in those places. And the one thing it does for you is it just opens your mind that these people are living a complete different life to me. And if they're living a complete different life to me, that means there's a possibility that I can change the way I live. Click. That's what happens. And now you start walking around life and you go back to the same people you were born and raised around. And you start reading in between the lines. When you start reading in between the lines and people always talking about, I remember when lockdown was amazing, man. I miss it. I really wish it could happen again. If somebody also tells you, I miss school, man. I wish I could go back to school. Now that you know how to read in between the lines, what does that tell you? My current life sucks so bad and I'm reluctant to growing. Therefore, the only highlights, the emotional charged moments in my life are in the past. Very sad way of living. Again, if you ask me about high school or lockdown, yeah, I enjoyed moments. Would I go back to it? Hell no. You couldn't even pay me $1 million to go back to that time. Why? Because I believe in what the future holds. If you're moving forward, you're on the right path. If you're dwelling on the past, be scared. And I think that's what I want to really tap in with you guys, because young people have really gotten into this mindset where we don't question things. You just hear it all the time. If my dad now comes to me and talks to me about the heydays, the good days, yes, because my dad's a senior citizen, he's an old man. He's well within his rights to tell me that. Because as soon as your health starts to deteriorate and as soon as you start becoming more old with age, yes, the first thing that people dwell on is when they were healthy, they were able to do anything. But you've got health now, so what excuse do you have? And that is why it pisses me off. I talk to people and I'm around certain groups, which I'm no longer around, and all I hear about is people reminiscing about the past. I miss those days. Yeah, your life sucks. So I want you guys to repeat this to yourselves every time. Whenever you're around people that are talking about how amazing the past used to be and they're young and healthy, just rewire your brain and tell yourself they are only saying that because their current life sucks and they are not growing. They are reluctant to growth. Why? Because they're scared of the future. And if you want to peel a layer and go a level deeper, there's a reason for that. We've been wired for certainty. Your whole entire life, you've been told that if you study, you'll get a grade. If you get a grade, you'll go to college. If you go to college and you get a grade, you go to university. If you go to university and you get a grade, you get a job. After you get a job, you get a mortgage. After you get a mortgage, you find a spouse or woman or a man and you get married. After that, you have a kid. After that, you just continue living life, paying bills, and just living on this treadmill of life. Forget all of that. Live life on your own terms. So long as you are fulfilling your moral obligations, I can promise you life is a GTA server. I tell people this all the time. My life is a GTA lobby. Today, you can see me here in the UAE. Tomorrow, you might see me somewhere in China. The next day, you might see me somewhere in the US. I don't ever put myself in a box because I believe that if I think about something and it makes a lot of sense, why don't I go experience it? What are you so scared of? Whenever I talk to most people and I ask them, what are you actually scared of? because they talk about, I don't want to move out for a job because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to travel solo because I'm scared. What is going to happen? If you really think about the worst case scenario, it isn't as bad. And if you can live with it, do it. That's been my formula for so many years. The worst case scenario in your mind, if you can live with it, do it. Because it isn't scary then. But when you don't define things, here's the issue. When you don't define things in your mind, and I'm like a unofficial psychologist or therapist, right? Whenever somebody says to me, I'm scared, I always ask them, what the hell does that mean? Because if you say I'm scared and you don't define it, you're going to take the literal definition and your brain isn't going to know otherwise. And if I tell you, I'm socially anxious, what does that actually mean? Or are you ascribing yourself to a label because you don't want to sit down and actually think about what does that mean to you? These are important talking points. And I want you guys to become independent thinkers or critical thinkers. This is something I had to develop the hard way and I'm giving to you guys for free. Anytime somebody says something, read in between the lines. If somebody tells you, for example, I'm going on a bit of a sidetrack here. If somebody tells you, I'm busy all the time, I can't get back to you. It doesn't mean they're busy all the time. Nobody's busy all the time. Even the most successful entrepreneur on the planet isn't busy all the time. We make time for what we value. If you read in between the lines, what does that tell you? You're not a priority in my life and I cannot be bothered putting energy in. Boom, you've got your answer there. You don't need to take things literally and just say, he's busy, let me leave him alone. Or she's busy, let me leave her alone. So when people are so easy, when they talk about, my life was so good in the past and I wish I could go back to that time. If you take it literally, you're like, there was good times in the past. He's probably dwelling on how good it used to be is a positive thing. No, it absolutely isn't. That person is literally telling you to your face, my life sucks. I'm reluctant to grow. Please help. And if you continue hanging around these people, it rubs off on you. And I'm very, very hard. I was going to say adamant, right? I'm very, very hard on being careful with who you hang around. And it isn't because of lifestyle differences most times, honestly. It isn't because of, someone might work a regular job and I might be an entrepreneur. It isn't because of that. It's what people utter. When somebody says, I can't be bothered doing that, or, this whole nonchalant attitude that has been made popular. Nonchalant attitude and you just saying, I don't care, is emotional immaturity and a lack of responsibility. If you're a true man or woman of God, you would understand that you have to put your best foot forward and put the rest of the trust in God. That's how it's always been. But remember what I said at the beginning, you have to put your best foot forward. It's not something that you can just say, I don't care. Whenever somebody says, I'm nonchalant, I don't care, they're basically telling you, again, if you read in between the lines, I'm immature and I'm emotionally bankrupt and I'm scared. I'm giving you guys multiple lessons in one video. But let me go back to my initial point, right? I've got a few points here that I wanted to kind of touch on before I wrap up. So a lot of people in the West have normalized this whole idea that, you can just dwell on the past and always talk about the heydays, where heydays were reserved for senior citizens of society that have actually done things with their life. So don't let this be a thing that you normalize. Don't normalize it. If somebody says it to you, you know exactly what you need to say. But for yourself, this is a taking point from this video. For yourself, I want you to start developing this mindset of not being scared to do something new. I get it. We've been raised in households and societies where everybody does the same shit. It gets me angry when I think about how everybody just does the same shit, not because they want to, but because everyone else is doing. And I'm not talking about money. There's nothing to do with money. I'm not telling you to go become an entrepreneur and a businessman. No. I'm saying do things that you're interested in. If you like to knit, if you like to go on a run, if you like to do pottery, if you like to be very artistic, if you like poems, do the things you like. Of course, I do agree that we have to work, get some income in. But as long as you're curious and you have an open mind, I can almost promise you, you'll have the best stories to tell. Most people that I hang around, I don't think I can have a conversation with them for longer than 1 or 2 minutes. Why? Simply because I noticed this where they are very reluctant to grow. They're scared of the future and they dwell on the past a lot, that they're just stuck. In that present moment there, they are stuck. So what new do they have to provide to people? Nothing. Which is why whenever you hang around certain people, it's the same rinse topics over and over again. It's the same topics. But you're asking yourself, do they not have any other hobbies? Reluctant to grow. If you want to be a very charismatic person If you want to be somebody that people look at and say, that guy's very interesting, I would like to think of myself like that, right? There's a reason why people just find me interesting all the time, right? It's literally because I just do different things. I just try different things. I go different places. I get out of my comfort zone. For example, making YouTube videos, meeting new people, building a business, having a career, moving countries, just having random inputs into my life requires me or forces me to grow. And when I grow, you eclipse people that are dwelling on the past. So the takeaway of this video is one of your new non-negotiables has to be whenever somebody mentions my heydays used to be in the past and they are healthy and they are young and they've got no health complications, I think I mentioned that already, distance yourself, because that rubs off on me. Whenever you hear people talking about, oh, my life peaked in high school, the good days were there, I miss lockdown. Whenever you hear these things, read in between the lines. My life sucks and I'm reluctant to grow. And I want you guys to take this in and really implement this in your lives from now onwards. It is not about money. The game isn't about money. It's about being open-minded enough to let your curiosities take you forward. And that is when you really live a life that's interesting. Have you ever realized these backpackers, these people that work these random jobs that are very obscure? I met a guy that works in the UN. When you start speaking to these people, you can see the excitement in their eyes that they don't think about money. Money is another version of the matrix. You need to acknowledge this. And I'm not saying you shouldn't earn money or you shouldn't be ambitious enough to make a lot of money. But I'm saying if your whole entire identity is, I want to make more money so I can get a nice car, house, watch, you're living in the matrix. Tap out of this. So remember what I said. If somebody's dwelling on the past or talking about the heydays, that's their version of my life sucks and I'm reluctant to grow. See you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe.